All right. Hello to any viewers. In this video, we're going to go over two covenants. They're called the covenants of promise in Ephesians 2. So I'll go over that, and then we're going to explain basically what you have to follow, um, because these are the two main things. This will cover 99% of what you have to follow right here as a person in the last days. So I guess we'll start in Ephesians 2, verse 11. So here's what it says. Wherefore remember that ye being in time past Gentiles in the flesh, who are called uncircumcision by that which is called the circumcision in the flesh made by hands, that at that time you were without Christ, being aliens from the commonwealth of Israel and strangers from the covenants of promise, having no hope and without God in the world. But now in Christ Yeshua, ye who sometimes were far off are made nigh by the blood of Christ. Then going to verse 19, now therefore ye are no more strangers and foreigners, but fellow citizens with the saints and of the household of God. So a lot of people don't even know this, but they are Israel if they believe in the Messiah. So what that means is that the covenants that were given to Israel are also given to them. So we're going to go over those two. We'll start with the Rainbow Covenant because that one was given first. And then after that, we'll go into the one given to Moses at Horeb, which is the Ten Commandments. So the Rainbow Covenant was given in Genesis 9, so I'll just read some of that. So starting in verse 1, and God blessed Noah and his sons and said unto them, be fruitful and multiply and replenish the earth. And the fear of you and the dread of you shall be upon every beast of the earth and upon every fowl of the air, upon all that moveth upon the earth and upon all the fishes of the sea. Into your hand are they delivered. Every moving thing that liveth shall be meat for you, even as the green herb have I given you all things. But flesh with the life thereof, which is the blood thereof, shall you not eat. And surely your blood of your lives will I require. At the hand of every beast will I require it, and at the hand of man. At the hand of every man's brother will I require the life of man. Whoso sheddeth man's blood, by man shall his blood be shed, for in the image of God made he man. And you be ye fruitful, and multiply, bring forth abundantly in the earth, and multiply therein. And God spake unto Noah and to his sons with him, saying, and I, behold, I establish my covenant with you and with your seed after you, and with every living creature that is with you, of the fowl of the cattle, and of every beast of the earth with you, from all that go out of the ark to every beast of the earth. And I will establish my covenant with you, neither shall all flesh be cut off any more by the waters of a flood, neither shall there any more be a flood to destroy the earth. And God said, this is the token of the covenant which I make between me and you and every living creature that is with you for perpetual generations. I do set my bow in the cloud, and it shall be for a token of a covenant between me and the earth. So you'll see that people don't realize this, but there are actually terms to this covenant. People just think it only includes the flood aspect. God's not going to kill the world with a flood again. But you'll see that there's also the aspect of, but flesh with the life thereof, which is the blood, you shall not eat. So you can't eat the blood of an animal. When you have to kill an animal, you have to drain it out. There's also the at the you can't shed man's blood, so that's also murder. You can't be a murderer, but that also kind of overlaps with the Horeb covenant. So, but there's
Don't
also an sorry, what was that?
don't forget menstrual women either.
Right, that too. Don't touch the blood either. But yeah, there's also one other thing that people don't really realize in here, and that's that unclean animals are actually part of this covenant too. And you may not see that at first, based on verse 3, where it says, every moving thing that liveth shall be meat for you. But he's really just saying that in reference to the green herbs. So like he's saying you can eat animals too now. And you can see this if you read the full instruction of God. You can go back to chapter 7, verse 2. Noah knew the distinction between clean and unclean. So of every clean beast thou shalt make to thee by sevens the male and his female, and of beasts that are not clean by two the male and his female. So when God even told him that, he already knew the distinction. So knowing that, I want to go to a portion of Jubilees. So chapter 6, we're going to start on verse 5. So this is the same account basically of the Rainbow Covenant, but it shows a little bit more. So Noah sacrifices these clean animals, and then here's what God says. And the Lord smelt the goodly savor, and he made a covenant with him that there should not be any more a flood to destroy the earth, that all the days of the earth, seed time and harvest, should never cease, cold and heat, and summer and winter, and day and night should not change their order nor cease forever. And you increase ye and multiply upon the earth, and become many upon it, and be a blessing upon it. The fear of you and the dread of you I shall inspire in everything that is on earth and in the sea. Behold, I have given unto you all beasts and all winged things, and everything that moveth on the earth, and the fish in the waters, and all things for food, as the green herbs. I have given you all things to eat. But flesh, with the life thereof, with the blood, ye shall not eat. For the life of all flesh is in the blood, lest your blood of your lives be required. At the hand of every man, at the hand of every beast, shall I require the blood of man. Whoso sheddeth man's blood, by man shall his blood be shed, for in the image of God made he man. And you increase ye and multiply on the earth. And Noah and his sons swore that they would not eat any blood that was in any flesh. And he made a covenant before the Lord God forever throughout all the generations of the earth in this month. And something else, it was made with the beasts of the field. I forgot to mention in Genesis 9, but it says that he makes it with the beasts of the field too. That's a representative of the Gentiles. But so yeah, that's the main point of it. It's you don't eat the blood and you don't shed man's blood. And I'm gonna go a little further into Jubilees chapter 6 at verse 52. This is a prophecy, and it explains a little bit more, and it's very accurate to what's going on today. So, and all the children of Israel will forget and will not find the path of the years, and will forget the new moons and seasons and Sabbaths, and they will go wrong as to all the order of the years. For I know it from henceforth shall I declare it unto thee, and it is not of mine own devising. For the book lieth written before me, and on the heavenly tables the division of days is ordained. Lest they forget the feasts of the covenant, and walk according to the feasts of the Gentiles after their error and after their ignorance. For there will be those who will assuredly make observations of the moon. Now it disturbeth the seasons, and cometh in from year to year 10 days too soon. For this reason the years will come upon them when they will disturb the order, and make an abominable day, the day of testimony, and an unclean day, a feast day. And they will confound all the days, the holy with the unclean, and the unclean day with the holy, for they will go wrong as to the months and Sabbaths and feasts and jubilees. For this reason I command and testify to thee, that thou mayest testify to them. For after thy death thy children will disturb them, so that they will not make the year 364 days only. And this is the important verse to listen to. And for this reason they will go wrong as to the new moons and seasons and Sabbaths and festivals, and they will eat all kinds of blood with all kinds of flesh. So you can see that the blood restriction encompasses more than just blood. It also includes eating animals of unclean flesh. And we'll see this again in Leviticus 17. So that's where I'm going to go here. So starting in verse 12, I'm just going to read 2 verses. Therefore I said unto the children of Israel, no soul of you shall eat blood, neither shall any stranger that sojourneth among you eat blood. So even the ones that are grafted in can't eat this blood. And whatsoever man there be of the children of Israel, or of the strangers that sojourn among you, which hunteth and catcheth any beast or fowl that may be eaten, he shall even pour out the blood thereof and cover it with dust. So even here you can see there are certain animals that are part of this restriction too. And if you go to Leviticus 11, just back a little bit, it explains what these are. And I'm not going to go over the whole list because that would take forever, but the main ones that people eat today is probably pig and shellfish. You're not allowed to eat any of those. The rest of it is pretty self-explanatory, like no rats or snakes or I don't know, crocodiles, stuff like that. But here's God's explanation of why he doesn't want us to eat this stuff. For I am the Lord your God. Ye shall therefore sanctify yourselves, and ye shall be holy, for I am holy. Neither shall ye defile yourselves with any manner of creeping things that creepeth upon the earth. For I am the Lord that bringeth you up out of the land of Egypt to be your God. Ye shall therefore be holy, for I am holy. This is the law of the beasts, and of the fowl, and of every living creature that moveth in the waters, and of every creature that creepeth upon the earth, to make a difference between the unclean and the clean, and between the beast that may be eaten and the beast that may not be eaten. Right, and then so going to Acts 15 now, this is worth mentioning. So this is where they were giving restrictions to the new Gentile converts. And people actually like to use this against the idea that we have to still eat clean. But now that we know that the blood restriction encompasses more than just literally not eating blood, this it sheds a little bit of light on this. So it says, but that we write unto them that they abstain from pollutions of idols, and from fornication, and from things strangled, and from blood. That also means you can't eat anything unclean. And that's where it is, even in the New Testament. So one last thing I want to look at for the Rainbow Covenant. This is Isaiah 66. This shows that it's actually forever. So yeah, the rainbow, it's still in the sky if you look up after like it rains. So this goes all the way back from Noah all the way to the end of, well, tribulation, as you'll see right here. But I'll go ahead and read these few verses of Isaiah 66, starting in 15. For behold, the Lord will come with fire, and with his chariots like a whirlwind, to render his anger with fury and his rebuke with flames of fire. For by fire and by his sword will the Lord plead with all flesh, and the slain of the Lord shall be many. They that sanctify themselves and purify themselves in the gardens, behind one tree in the midst, eating swine's flesh, and the abomination and the mouse shall be consumed together, saith the Lord. So God promised with his rainbow covenant that he would no longer kill the entire world with a flood. So instead now, since people are forsaking his rainbow covenant and all his other ways as well, he's going to come instead of water, but with fire. He's going to come and destroy and plead with all flesh. So that's further testimony to the fact that this rainbow covenant, we still have to follow it because he's still punishing people in tribulation for eating unclean. So why would that be if we didn't have to do that anymore? Didn't have to eat clean anymore. But that's what I got for that. You guys want to take it?
Yeah. I wanted to talk about before anybody gets easily deceived, like I was, by a couple of New Testament scriptures. They are twisted horribly. I want to talk about Mark 7, Acts 10, and Romans 14. So Mark 7, and we got a lot to cover, so if you'll have to read these things for yourself, but in quick summary, breaking them down. Mark 7, the Messiah is saying it's not what enters into your belly, but what comes out that is what defiles you. And and he's calling them out for the traditions of man. Um, and people look at that and say, "Oh, it's about our heart." It is about your heart, but they say we can eat whatever we want. By that logic, you could eat a big fat cow pie. Uh, but who would ever do that? Um, so what it's about, if you go earlier in the chapter, it's about eating bread with unwashed hands, because the Pharisees made up this law that if you ate bread with unwashed hands, it would defile you. So he's, calling them out for that. And then what he's saying is, you know, don't take heed to these traditions of man. You're not going to be defiled by eating bread that you didn't wash your hands before. And then the biggest one, the one that stumped me for a long time, the one that I have to deal with people saying the most, is Acts 10. The classic Peter's vision. And I'll just open up to it so I don't misquote anything, and we can break it down, because this is probably the most important one, because it's the most attention is given to this one. So Peter's, on a housetop, and there's a man in Caesarea named Cornelius, and basically he's with a couple guys, and they're Gentiles, and Peter's sitting on this housetop, and he's hungry, and as he's thinking about eating. Let me find where that starts. Verse 10:10. And he became very hungry and would have eaten, but while they made ready, he fell into a trance and saw heaven open, and a certain vessel descending unto him, as it had been a great sheet knit at the four corners and let down to the earth, wherein were all manner of four-footed beasts of the earth, and wild beasts, and creeping things, and fowls of the air. Which is interesting, because we just talked about he makes his covenant with the beasts of the field, which represents Gentiles. And there came a voice to him, Rise, Peter, kill and eat. But Peter said, Not so, Lord, for I have never eaten anything that is common or unclean. So he's obviously refraining from eating. He's like, what? Why would I eat anything that's unclean? Which shows that it was still unclean. And the voice spake unto him again the second time, what God hath cleansed, thou called that call not thou common. This was done thrice, and the vessel was received up into heaven. Now while Peter doubted in himself this vision, which he had seen should mean, and behold, the men which were sent from Cornelius in another place on their journey to Peter. So this is happening in the same time. They're on their way as Peter's having this vision, because Cornelius had a vision too, or heard the voice. And basically, they start greeting each other, and they start bowing down to Peter, and he's telling them, don't do that. I'm a man too. And then verse 28 is the key verse, because they're talking about it's not lawful for a Jew to eat with, a Gentile or a common man. And then it clicks for Peter, because he's sitting there, he's doubting, what does this mean? Why would I eat unclean? And he said unto them, ye know how it is an unlawful thing for a man that is a Jew to keep company or come near unto one of another nation. But God hath showed me that I should not call any man common or unclean. And that's it right there. So you really have to break that down. It's not that hard, but most people get to whatever it is, verse 15, and they stop and go, all right, where's my pork chops? They don't read the rest of the chapter. And there is no mention anywhere after this of them chowing down on their pulled pork or anything like that. So there never was a mention of eating unclean. So it's pretty clear. And then Romans 14 is another one that, is pretty commonly used. And this one stumped me too for a while, because Paul's letters will do that if you don't read the rest of Scripture, specifically prophecy in the Old Testament, to find out what Paul's quoting. And while I'm flipping there, Matthew, if you want to pull out that verse you talked about yesterday, I think it's 2 Peter 2, where Peter literally's talking about people are going to twist Paul's letters.
Right. So Romans is one of the letters of Paul, and Peter actually gives us a warning for dealing with Paul's letters, because he knows that there will be unlearned people who twist his words to their own destruction. So I'll just read these few verses here. Starting in 15 of 2 Peter chapter 3. An account that the long suffering of our Lord is salvation, even as our beloved brother Paul also according to the wisdom given unto him hath written unto you. As also in all his epistles, speaking in them of these things, in which are some things hard to be understood, which they that are unlearned and unstable wrest, as they do also the other scriptures, unto their own destruction. Ye therefore, beloved, seeing ye know these things before, beware lest ye also, being led away with the error of the wicked, fall from your own steadfastness. So honestly, I think this is a really important warning that people need to know before they go and start being presumptuous about all of Paul's letters. He warns people that there's going to be lawlessness and unlearned people that are twisting his words to their own destruction. So that's something you got to consider when you're reading his letters.
Yeah, so you do have to really be cautious. It's tempting to, Paul's like kind of this cool figure who, was going around preaching the word everywhere, and his letters are very interesting. But boy, you'll put yourself in a world of hurt and start telling lies if you don't get grounded in the rest of the scriptures first. So right at Romans 14, verse 1. Him that is weak in the faith, receive ye, but not to doubtful disputations. For one believeth he may eat all things, another who is weak eateth herbs. All right, so that puts it in scale right there. It's not talking about one guy eats his crab legs and another guy doesn't. It's talking about meats versus vegetables. So one guy might not feel consciously that he can eat a steak for whatever reason. Like he doesn't like the blood juices, or he doesn't like there's a little bit of pink in the middle or whatever it is. He might not he might feel convicted not to eat a steak. Or if he's a baby in the faith, and I had things like that where when I was a fresh baby in the faith, there were some things that weren't wrong for me to do, but because I didn't believe that I could do them, it would have been wrong for me to do. So basically what this is saying is if you want to eat salad because you feel like you need to eat salad, I'm not going to bust your chops for that. But if I feel like I can eat a steak, and we know both the salad and the steak are both clean biblically, you don't judge me for eating a steak. I don't judge you for eating a salad. Let him, this is verse 3, let him that eateth despise not, let not him that eateth despise him that eateth not, and let not him which eateth not judge him that eateth, for God hath received him. Who art thou to judgest another man's servant? To his own master he standeth or falleth, yet he shall be holden up, for God is able to make him stand. One man esteemeth one day above another, another one man esteemeth one day above another, another esteemeth every day alike. Like every man he be fully persuaded in his own mind. As you can see, it is also Paul plus King James is tough. It's hard to even pronounce all of the words, but um, basically, this is talking about. I believe this is about the feasts. It could very well be, or I believe this is about fasting. It could very well be about the feasts as well. Like if it's a Tuesday and I get a conviction or I have a burden or something, and I'm like, I need to fast today. I need to spend extra time fasting and praying today. But it's just a Tuesday. There's no special thing about it. But to me, for whatever reason, that day got esteemed to a day that I'm going to fast. But you don't. It's just your usual Tuesday for you. So you're eating a cheeseburger or whatever. Uh, to you, it's a regular day, but to me, it was esteemed for whatever the reason was. So I'm not going to yell at you and say, dude, why aren't you fasting? I'm fasting today. Why aren't you fasting? And you're not going to look at me and go, dude, it's a Tuesday. Why are you fasting? You shouldn't fast today, type of thing. Um, so that's, again, those things are pretty clear. And then later in Romans 14, it's talking about, I'm convinced that no thing of itself is unclean, but to him who esteems it to be unclean, it is unclean. And that's kind of the same thing. Like I started getting my steaks more well done than I typically was because of the juice that came out of it. I didn't like that juice because to me, I was weak in the faith. I didn't know if that would be considered eating blood. So, um, to me, I esteemed that as unclean. So to me, it was unclean. And if I couldn't eat it in faith, then it would have been wrong. But if another guy eats his steak and it got a little bit of red juice, because that's just what happens when you cook it, and he can eat it in a pure conscience, then I'm not going to judge that guy. And as your faith increases, these things change. Like now that I've learned about what that juice really is in a steak, that it's not blood. Um, you learn things and your faith increases and you get a stronger conscience. But it's just talking about that. When you break it down, it's really simple. Uh, you can't even call crab, lobster, pork, whatever, unclean food because it never was food. Um, unclean food would probably be more of like food sacrificed to idols. These are just unclean animals. These are unclean things that were never intended to be food. And, like Matthew said, that's a major thing is the fact that we still see rainbows. If this covenant was made and the token or the sign of it was a rainbow, and you still see a rainbow, every time it rains, what does that tell you? And, Ephesians 2 is huge, the covenants with the S. So, yeah, that's what I got for breaking down some common misconceptions. But that's pretty much all I have for now on that.
I guess I just kind of wanted to add, but also verse 6 makes it very clear in Romans 14, he that eateth to the Lord, for he giveth God thanks, and he that eateth not to the Lord, he eateth not and giveth God thanks. So I think that really kind of like drives home the fasting idea. Um, I've looked a little bit into this, but there were apparently fasting days back then. Like you'll even see in Luke 18, the one of the Pharisees was like, I fast twice a week. So he's talking about like if your brother thinks you have to keep these fasting days, go ahead, just receive him in the faith. If not, then you guys are both free. You don't have to worry about it. Yeah, that's basically what it's about. I see it that way. About the fasting days that were there back then. So he's saying don't judge another man for abiding by abiding by these days, but you know.
Because that's self-righteous judgment, right? You know, we
Mhm.
are to judge righteously, but uh judging a guy because he fasted on a Tuesday that you didn't think you needed to fast on, uh is judging self-righteously. Like, some guys might only eat plain pizza. It had to be made plain, just cheese, that's it. Some guys might pick the pepperoni off the pizza and eat it in strong conscience. You know, I
Yep.
can't do that right now personally. Maybe my faith will increase. Uh, but I'm not going to judge the guy that does that, because is he eating swine's flesh? No, he's not. Um, so that kind of thing too. But Corbin, you got anything you want to add here?
Before we go to the next covenant.
I don't have anything to add to that one, but I am ready for the next one.
All right.
So I guess I'll just get into this then.
Well, does Matthew want to explain? I think he had that more, his notes were more geared toward the origin and where and why and when this all took place.
Sure, yeah. So yeah, the rainbow covenant that was given with Noah, and then the covenant at Horeb, well, that was given to the children of Israel when they were at Mount Horeb. So it was in chapter 5 of Deuteronomy, he lists the Ten Commandments for Israel, and then in verse 22 it says, "These words, excuse me, these words the Lord spake unto all your assembly in the mount out of the midst of the fire, of the cloud, and of the thick darkness, with a great voice, and he added no more. And he wrote them in 2 tables of stone and delivered them unto me." So this is showing that this was the last thing he really added as part of the 2 covenants. So, we were never even supposed to actually get the law in the first place. You'll read that in Galatians 3:19. Let me get to it real quick. "Wherefore then serveth the law? It was added because of transgressions, till the seed should come to whom the promise was made, and it was ordained by angels in the hand of a mediator." So the sacrificial law was added because of transgressions to the covenant, because they immediately transgressed and made a golden calf. So we were never supposed to get the law in the first place. So now that Christ died on the cross for us, we're freed from the law. So then because it was supposed to be temporary, and now we just go back to the covenants that were given to Israel in the first place. So
Yeah.
yeah, that includes the Ten Commandments for the Holy Covenant, I guess you could call it.
Uh, is that it for what you were going to say there?
Yeah.
All right. Uh, Real quick, Corbin, before you go, I do want to say, while you're on Galatians 3, the whole chapter of Galatians 3 is a must understand before you start spewing things that aren't true, because that clearly shows you which law Paul's talking about. He's clearly talking about sacrificial law um, being done away with, and why we had it and what it was for, and added for the transgression to the Ten Commandments. And then you go to Romans 2, I believe it is, where Paul's saying not the hearers, but the doers of the law will be justified, right? So either you're twisting the scripture or Paul's lying and contradicting himself. Which one is it? It's so important to rightly divide the word in Paul's letters in this case specifically, but you can't do that unless you have the ground. Like, you'll read Romans and you'll think, oh, I got to keep the law. And then you'll read Galatians and you go, oh, I don't have to keep the law. And you'll just go back and forth the whole time through Paul's letters if you don't understand which laws are being talked about based on context and based on the Old Testament.
Well, you see even here in Matthew 5:18, where it says, "For verily I say unto you, till heaven and earth pass away, not one jot or tittle shall in no wise pass away from the law." That again, a difference in the law, because we know sacrifice is done, but what bit of the law is still left?
Exactly. And that's made clear, once you parse it out. And nobody should take our word for it because, it's all right there. And, you know, making a video like this and telling people isn't just to win them over on the flip of a dime. It's to give people the access to the things they need to study to come to the full truth. Um, and yeah, I mean, it's right there. It's laid out for us. And if you call out for the truth, you know, Yah gives it to you, but you have to genuinely want it.
Amen. Well, like, and we still have to, some people like to say that even the Ten Commandments were done away with, that all I need is to be baptized and all that. And all baptism really is just following the Ten Commandments and keeping your nose in the Bible. Love God with all your heart, soul, and mind, love your neighbor as yourself. It says in 1 John 5, it tells us love is following the commandments. Let me find that real quick.
It's 5:3.
I'm just trying to find 1 John. I found it. 5:3. For this is the love of God, that we keep his commandments, and his commandments are not grievous. So his commandments aren't a burden, and we have to keep his commandments.
How can a rest day be a burden?
Yeah.
Right? That's the craziest thing ever. People will look at the Sabbath and be like, "That's a burden." You're like, "Huh? It's a burden to
Yeah.
rest?" Like, but yeah, the commandments that we have to follow today are super easy. It's like you got the Ten Commandments, that's easy. And then you have the Rainbow Covenant, so just eat clean. So keep the Ten Commandments and eat clean, and you're good. That's like
And,
99% of what you got to do.
and fulfill the royal law, which is the two elevated commandments, which tie into the Ten Commandments. Um, 1 John 2:2-6 pretty much says the same thing. He who says he knows me or loves me and keeps not my commandments is a liar. And then 2:6 talks about we should walk how Messiah walked, So did he sin? No. So that means he was keeping the commandments because sin is breaking the commandments. So if we're gonna
Right.
walk as he walked, I mean, simple math like that. But yeah, for the whole book of 1 John really gets to that point. And then Matthew 22:37-39, which is the royal law, love God with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength, is quoting many things, but probably my favorite that it's quoting, and I think gets the point across, maybe the best, at least to me, is Deuteronomy 11:1. And I'll go there, and it's just spelled out clear as day. Um, Therefore, thou shalt love the Lord thy God and keep his charge and his statutes and his judgments and his commandments always. So, pretty self explanatory. And then loving your neighbor as yourself is Leviticus 19:17-18.
Right there, right now.
And yeah, go ahead and read it.
Thou shalt not hate thy brother in thine heart. Thou shalt in any wise rebuke thy neighbor and not suffer sin upon him. That thou shalt not avenge nor bear any grudge against the children of thy people, but thou shalt love thy neighbor as thyself, for I am the Lord.
It's right there, man.
Right. And that's one of the biggest things that's probably led us to how horrible, the church is today. Like we're being tolerant of sin instead of rebuking it out of the church. And that's an awful thing because that's how it's degenerated so much in the past years. Because loving your neighbor as yourself means that you will rebuke them when they sin so that they don't go to hell for it. But everyone wants to be tolerant. They care more about not being in an awkward social situation instead of, saving them from eternal destruction.
And it can be very uncomfortable It is a lot of times, most of the time. But that's kind of part of how society's been groomed up to this point, because everyone's got their own truth, right? Don't judge me. People will run around like saying, well, yeah, Jesus said, thou shalt not judge. What? I don't remember reading that.
Thou shalt judge.
Yeah.
Oh, I think you cut out for a bit
So
there.
me?
Corbin.
Oh,
Corbin.
I just said, thou shalt judge righteous judgment.
There you go.
yeah. So yeah, it's uncomfortable, but this ties into Ezekiel 2:3. You don't want blood on your hands. If you I was watching one of Mark's videos a little bit earlier, and you have to with what you're given, you have to go out and do what you're supposed to do with what you're given, pretty much. So some people won't understand the depths of Satan as much, but to the knowledge, like, you have to go out and preach the knowledge that you're given. And you don't want blood on your hands. That's a lose-lose for everybody. You just screwed yourself, and you screwed your neighbor too. Or you take the punch now, maybe you get rejected, the guy screams in your face, but at least you gave them the knowledge. And whether they hear or forbear, you're still going to preach it. And it might be in the Great Tribulation that guy, hopefully it sticks right here, and it comes to remembrance when he needs it. But yeah, your flesh really doesn't not want to do that, because no one wants to get screamed at or anything. But if you know, if you go to a church service to try to find some lost sheep, and they got a Christmas tree in there, you got to say something about that, because how terrifying is it, an idea that there will come a day, if we keep our mouths closed, that we're standing in front of the Father, or the Messiah and the Messiah, and it's like, we knew this, and we didn't tell these people, and now these people are going to perish because we zipped our lips because we were too scared to take the punch. Now the disciples and the Messiah got crucified. The disciples all got killed except for John. The prophets were getting sawed in half and all kinds of terrible deaths. But we're scared to have someone call us a weirdo or a Bible thumper. Well, it's a good thing to be called a Bible thumper, and a good thing to be called weird, because we're a peculiar people.
Well, and even the last two verses in the book of James sum up just one of the many blessings that you get for rebuking people. Can y'all hear me?
Yeah.
Just making sure. Verse 19 and 20 of chapter 5 of James. Brethren, if any of you do err from the truth, and one convert him, let him know that he which converteth the sinner from the error of his way shall save a soul from death, and shall hide a multitude of sins. So that's just, you want to go love your neighbor as yourself and hide their sins, rebuke them, help them see the truth also.
And I'll tell you, even when someone doesn't listen and you really don't want to say something, if you just do it, you walk away feeling so much better. Like, you just gave that person the truth, that it might save their life at some point. It might not be right now, but it might save their life at some point. And if you keep your mouth closed and you walk away and you go, I should have said something, it's a horrible, horrible feeling. And I've been there, unfortunately. But yeah, I mean, love. Yeah, if you see a guy that needs a ride, or a guy that's hungry, buy him a burger. But loving your neighbor that's not what that is, and it's clearly defined right there in Leviticus 19. And speaking of promises, that reminds me, I want to bring up Isaiah 58 about the Sabbath, because that's a great promise. That Why would you not want to be a partaker of this promise? We can talk about Romans 11 and Isaiah 56 too, because those are important to this as well. All right. Isaiah 58, 13 and 14. If thou shalt turn away thy foot from the Sabbath, from doing thy pleasure on my holy day, and call the Sabbath a delight, the holy of the Lord, honorable, and shalt honor him, not doing thine own ways, nor finding thine own pleasure, nor speaking thine own words, then thou shalt delight thyself in the Lord, and I will cause thee to ride upon the high places of the earth, and feed thee with the heritage of Jacob thy father, for the mouth of the Lord hath spoken it. So, people would say, "Oh, that's the Old Testament. That doesn't apply anymore." Well, it's prophecy, and Revelation 19:10, the testimony of Yeshua is the spirit of prophecy.
Well, and it didn't just say work, it said thine own pleasures. So that doesn't mean that you can take off work and go watch a football game
Yeah,
or play some video games or something. You're supposed to be loving God on the Sabbath. Keep your nose in that book. That's what the day is
the
for.
the best thing you can do is fellowship. I think that's Hebrews 10. I don't know if it's verse 26 or not, but someone might know what I'm referring to. But don't
Yeah,
forsake the gathering. Is it 10:26?
10:25.
Okay. And we have a Sabbath. We have a Sabbath fellowship call every Saturday, 9 a.m. Eastern time, runs till like dinner time. It's a great blessing. It's a really important fellowship when in real life fellowship can sometimes be few and far between. And we study scripture, and God gives us, really good nuggets of information and really some cool things. And we hear cool testimonies, and uh, you can introduce yourself. You don't have to. You don't have to talk. You can just listen. And if anybody watching is interested in that, I think this video is going to be on Corbin's channel. So just comment on it, and we'll get you the link.
Something else worth mentioning about the Sabbath is that, well, first of all, it's the one that people forsake the most out of the Ten Commandments, but it's very much important for keeping the covenant. But people always get it wrong because they do it on the wrong day or they do it at the wrong time. So, most Christians will do it on Sunday, or they'll think that you don't even have to keep the Sabbath at all or something like that. And then some people who realize that, oh, it's on Saturday, they'll start following the ways of Judah, the the traditions of men. They'll start doing evening Sabbath, so Friday evening to Saturday evening, and that was actually from Babylon, but it was never commanded that way. You can look in Exodus 16 that the Sabbath day was from morning to morning. So if you do the Sabbath, you take these words we're speaking seriously. It's from Saturday morning to Sunday morning because the day starts at sunrise. So that's something you want to keep in mind. Also with the Holy Covenant, um, I guess this came to mind, but it's very important to keep. And it says that the Antichrist even he will he will gain intelligence against the people that forsakes the Holy Covenant. So I'll read this in Daniel 11 verse 30. For the ships of Chittim shall come against him, therefore he shall be grieved and return and have indignation against the Holy Covenant. So shall he do. He shall even return and have intelligence with them that forsake the Holy Covenant. So that's talking about the people today that are all saying new covenant, new covenant. They're saying we don't have to keep the Sabbath anymore. We don't have to worry about anything like that. And they're the ones that are going to give intelligence to the Antichrist. They're the ones that are going to be deceived by him. So you
And
got to, sorry, go ahead.
that pertains to Hebrews 8. That covenant has not happened yet.
Yes. Yeah. So yeah, Hebrews 8. So yeah, it quotes Jeremiah 10 or Jeremiah 31. And what's interesting about that is that it mentions that he's making that new covenant with the house of Judah and the house of Israel. So if you're neither of those, then you're not part of the new covenant. So that's what's something else people got to realize is that the new covenant is made with Israel. God's people is Israel, and you got to stop calling yourself a Gentile. But
Stop
yeah,
calling yourself a dry tree.
exactly, Isaiah 56. But
Yeah.
Verse 13 says, "In that he saith a new covenant, he hath made the first old. Now that which decayeth and waxeth old is ready to vanish away." And people get presumptuous about that. But when you go and read Revelation 3:2, you'll see that it's actually quoting that because it didn't say that it is dead. It's saying that it was ready to die. So here's what Revelation 3:2 says. It says, "Be watchful and strengthen the things which remain that are ready to die, for I have not found thy works perfect before God." So that covenant isn't dead yet. And the people that think it is dead, they're the ones that are going to be giving the Antichrist power. So,
And Hebrews 8 says, in that new covenant, that we're not going to have to teach our neighbor, saying, know the Lord, because everyone's going to know him already. So that's obviously not happening right now, because that's what we're doing right now. And that's the point of like finding the lost sheep, is because they need to know the Lord. So yeah, we're not there yet. We might be close, but we're not there yet.
yeah.
And I do want to say Deuteronomy 4:30-31 is another testament to this covenant still being around, even in the tribulation. So Deuteronomy 4:30-31. When thou art in tribulation, and all these things are come upon thee, even in the latter days, if thou shalt turn to the Lord thy God, and shalt be obedient unto his voice, for the Lord thy God is merciful God. He will not forsake thee, neither destroy thee, nor forget the covenant of thy fathers which he sware unto them. So he's saying, even in tribulation, when crap hits the fan, and you kind of have a realization moment like, wow, I messed up. He's still saying he's still going to be there. You can still repent. He'll remember the covenant that he made, and he still will make a way for you to keep the 10 Commandments and follow him. So, this is literally Deuteronomy is prophesying about the tribulation, which we haven't gotten to the latter half of the tribulation yet. So that this part of Deuteronomy has not happened yet, and it's still talking about this covenant. So it's still here right now.
Right. So yeah, it's saying there that, yeah, if you turn back to God, even in the latter days during tribulation, he'll remember the covenant. He'll remember the covenant promises of for obedience in Leviticus 26 and Deuteronomy 28. But if you're going to be one of those guys that are going to be stubborn even in tribulation, well, he's not going to remember them, and you're going to be punished, and you're going to be taken out of the earth. So
And what does Yeshua say? Depart from me, ye workers of what? Lawlessness.
there you go.
What is it? What is lawlessness? The word explains itself, but yeah, that's what I got for this specific topic. I know Corbin had he wanted to talk about mercy, and yeah, so go ahead.
Well, on the topic of you were talking about this, the Sabbath. People use Matthew 12 to try and say that we
Yeah.
don't Sabbath anymore, but nobody actually reads what he says in verse 3. Have you not read what David did? And that connects back directly to, I think it's 1 Samuel 21.
1 Samuel 21, 1-6, yeah.
And that might be a little bit long to go over in this video as well. What do y'all think?
Yeah, we probably should skip it. But
Yeah. Well, I
But
want to start doing this more often, so maybe that could be our next topic.
okay, sounds good.
he also quotes Hosea 6, which is interesting. But yeah, he says, "Go learneth what this mean. I will have mercy and not sacrifice." So you go look what it means in Hosea 6. "For I desired mercy and not sacrifice, and the knowledge of God more than burnt offerings. But they, like men, have transgressed the covenant. They have dealt treacherously against me." So even then, the Messiah is quoting something from the Old Testament that says we should still be keeping the covenant. So
Yeah, and just logically, if he didn't sin, which means he didn't break the Ten Commandments, people are really bearing false witness when they say that Yeshua broke the Sabbath. Well, he didn't. You have to go read what he's quoting, which is what you're talking about. Um, so what? Yeah, we'll have to dig into that more. Do you want to explain real quick, Math or Isaiah 56, Romans 11, and uh, how that plays into Exodus 31:16?
I guess so. So Isaiah 56, it's really the first 8 verses are pretty important. It's about strangers, even like the sons of the stranger. It says God will give them a better name if they start keeping his Sabbaths and the rest of his covenant. But yeah, Romans 11 goes into that too. It kind of says like now that you're grafted into the tree, don't be boastful, but fear, because you can be cut out the same way. So keeping his covenant is how you get grafted in, starting to believe. And then, if you do something that might get you to fear, then, well, like the Northern Kingdom did, that got them cut out, which is one of them not keeping the Sabbaths. Um, then you're going to get cut out of the tree and you will not be making it into God's kingdom. So Exodus 31, that kind of just like goes over the point again about it. It says, Wherefore the children of Israel shall keep the Sabbath to observe the Sabbath throughout their generations for a perpetual covenant. It is a sign between me and the children of Israel forever. For in 6 days the Lord made heaven and earth, and on the seventh day he rested and was refreshed. So, we can see that the Sabbath day is forever too. And it's not just like some people like to say that Christ is our Sabbath rest, but it's not, because he's not. Because you can see that even in the future, we are keeping a literal Sabbath day. Isaiah 66 verses 23. And it shall come to pass that from one new moon to another, and from one Sabbath to another, shall all flesh come to worship before me, saith the Lord. So you gotta ask, why are they keeping a literal day if Christ is our Sabbath rest? Did they not get the memo? They don't have to keep the Sabbath anymore. But
Yeah, people go, well, I'm not one of the children of Israel, so I don't have to keep it. And that ties into Romans 11, Ephesians 2, Isaiah 56. Don't call yourself a dry tree. You don't want to be a Gentile. That's not a good thing to be, but people run around. I think it's because, is it Paul tells the Gentiles to do just a couple things and they'll do well? Uh, like that was the starting point. That wasn't meaning just do these couple things, but people, whether they know it, whether they even know it, they're subconsciously always looking for an excuse to do less. So I think that's part of it. Um,
yep.
that's pretty much what I wanted to hit on personally. Or I did want to say this about the Sabbath. For the people who say we don't know that it's Saturday in the English language, we do know that it is, and there's multiple checkpoints that we can say that because we're on a 7 day week cycle right now. That's what it was at creation. Genesis 2:3, it was the seventh day. Fast forward to Matthew 28:1, which is used for the resurrection, which actually happened on Saturday, and that's in Daniel 9:26 and 27. It's used for the day dawning, and it's used for the Sabbath because the picture is the Sabbath is ending and it's dawning into the first day of the week, which is Sunday. So if the first day of the week is Sunday and the Sabbath is ending, what does that just logic wise make the day before Sunday? It would still be Saturday. Was it called Saturday back then? No, but the point is it was the seventh day transferring into the first day. And then in the 300s, you got Rome, mixing the profane with the holy. That's where a lot of Christmas and all this stuff comes from. But in the council, or Constantine said, he's changing the rest day to Sunday for the venerable day of the sun. And then the Catholic Church in 336, I think it was the Council of Laodicea, claimed the authority of Christ to change it, the Sabbath day to Sunday. So it wasn't God ordained. It was man saying, "Well, let's do this. Let's just follow Rome." And so you do have a timeline. It's been what we call Saturday the whole time. So yeah, the truth is out there. You just have to dig for it a little bit, you know?
Right. So I guess maybe just in conclusion, the two covenants of promise mentioned in Ephesians 2 that you have to follow when you are grafted into Israel. And you want to be Israel, by the way. You don't want to be a Gentile because that means you're not in covenant with God. But you want to be in covenant, and that means you got to keep the Ten Commandments and the Rainbow Covenant. So hopefully you know what the Ten Commandments are by now. If not, just read Deuteronomy 5. But make sure you're keeping the Sabbath, Saturday morning, Sunday morning. No tradition of men associated with it. But and then
Join us on Saturdays.
yeah, go ahead and reach out to us if you want. We're always happy to accept anyone else that wants to join us. But yeah, so yeah, the Holy Covenant, the Ten Commandments, and then the Rainbow Covenant. So eat clean, don't eat the blood. Thankfully, not many people are eating blood, but some are. But yeah, if you just keep the Ten Commandments, eat clean, don't touch the blood, that is 99% of what you have to do. So you don't have to worry about much else.
And you do it out of faith. That's what it is. You're not trying to rely on your own self-righteous works to enter the kingdom. You're doing it because of faith, like we talked about, 1 John 5:3. If you love me, keep my commandments. Ephesians 2. People love to quote Ephesians 2:8 and 9, but they never quote verse 10. We are supposed to be his workmanship, doing the works that he preordained for us to walk in. So when I'm keeping the Ten Commandments, not by my own strength, but by Yeshua cleansing me continually, and he was our example. He showed us how to do it, and he's helping us do it. He's holding our hand the whole time. We're doing it because we love him, and we're being obedient to him and the Father. And they send the Comforter, and we can walk in the Spirit. But you do it out of faith. You don't do it to boast. It's not of our own works. It's because we're just simply walking in the works that are preordained for us to walk in, because we love him and we believe what his word says, regardless of if your family thinks you're crazy, you get kicked out of the church, you leave the church, people think you're weird. You're trying to save their life. So guys, please actually seek these things out. Don't just write it off. Don't throw the baby out with the bathwater. Don't just take churchianity doctrine and run with it, because the whole world is deceived except for the very elect. There's going to be a couple people preaching the truth, and boy, you don't want to be on the wrong side of this thing. And so really pray that all of your personal desires and preconceived notions when you're reading scripture be removed, and that subconscious desire to want to do less, and actually ask God to show you what his will is, and he'll show it to you.
Amen. I think that'd be a good place to stop. What do you guys think?
Yeah, if Corbin wants to say a couple more things,
I think
but
pretty
that's it
much
for me.
what I wanted to go over. Mine would probably spiral it down into a rabbit hole if I kept going.
Yeah, I'm good. I think we got the point across here.
All right. Oh,
And one last thing is there's a lot of brothers and sisters that would do anything to help anybody who is a lost sheep that wants to actually take this serious and actually get in covenant with God. And seriously, like, there's ways to reach out, and so comment or find a way to contact somebody on Twitter or whatever it is. And
my name
there's people.
on YouTube, so you can find me there if you need to.
All right.